What's going on, guys? My name's Andrew Major. I just got done Triple C, just received my RFO. Good news, I got my 1-for-1. Great news, I'm really happy about that. But what I noticed was a lot of my peers did not have 1-for-1s and did not get the places they wanted. Give you the guidance that they need to get a 1-for-1 in the A marketplace. Because I know how stressful it can be, and for you or your family or whoever it may be, that is a tough, stressful time not knowing how it works. And so first off, I'm going to be going over, what is the A marketplace, how does it work, and then tips for best getting a 1-for-1. So the A marketplace. The A marketplace is basically the Tinder of the military, is how they phrase it, right? You have this pool of military officers, Army officers, and who knows, maybe it'll be NCOs in the future. If there's a change, please let me know down below in the comments section. I appreciate that. I'll give you guys that update. But anyways, you have this pool of military Army officers, right? And then you have these units and jobs, right? So what happens is these people basically throughout a period of around 6 weeks go through 3 phases, and then they first off list who they want, both sides, right? So the military officers will put down the units and locations they want, and then the units will do the same thing. And if you get a 1-for-1, if you're on the top of each other's list, you're connected, and basically it's a match made in heaven. And 9 times out of 10, out of my class of around 200 people in class before, almost everyone got their 1-for-1. There are small instances where people don't, but that might be for marriage or dual military reason or health reasons. Or they thought they had a 1-for-1 and they didn't, and that's something you have to be careful of. But anyways, going back to what the A marketplace is. So it's broken down in 3 phases. Phase 1 is just general interest. You're listing each other, you're seeing who's interested. And that's when you definitely should be reaching out and trying to get interviews. Phase 2 is where you are doing those interviews, and then you're restructuring your list of who is your one. And then phase 3 is where you're finalizing that, and basically everyone should know if they have a 1-for-1 or not. Or if not, they are trying to get one desperately. And that basically is the A marketplace summarized. So the next section is, how to best get a 1-for-1. And I'm gonna go over that. So the first thing that I want you guys to do is your resume. Your resume is really important because, first off, that's the first thing. If the unit is active and prepared and very involved in the A marketplace, that's the first thing they're gonna be looking at. And I'm looking at mine right now, and I'm just gonna go over it. Just make sure everything's correct. You have the units, you have your education there, and it's all correct. And then more specifically, the jobs. This is what my battalion commander told me. Make sure that looks uniform, however you do it, whether it's company, battalion, brigade, and then your division, just make sure all those assignments are uniform and the same. And then also make sure you get your picture. That's really important. And then the second page of the ORB is the assignments, or excuse me, your knowledge, skills, and behaviors. But basically this is just saying, hey, this is who I am outside of the OERs, outside of the paper, and you just want people to know who you are. So the summary, I just did a 2-paragraph thing. Education, I just listed my education, what I specifically focused on, and same with professed education that I've been learning myself. Civilian, those are just jobs that I've done in the past, and basically you're just trying to display your skills that you've done in the civilian sector. Basically it shows, hey, what else does this guy know? What else has this person done? How do these skills transfer to the Army? And that goes for the same for the assignments, and then the cultural experience and travels, and then the skills and certifications. And you want to fill this up as much as possible. For example, for the skills and certifications, I just said I was working on my PMP. I'm going to be taking it around this time. So that just shows that you're doing something, you're continuing to learn, and that you're that type of person who's always continuously trying to be better. And then lastly, references. Make sure you put down as many references as you can, which is 4. I would recommend the higher ranking person, and then if there's a specific unit you want to go to and you know someone from there, get a reference from that person. That way the unit can make that relation and be like, oh, this lieutenant colonel I know is down the street, and they'll just call them up, and that'll work really good for you. That's what happened with me for my job. They recognized my old professor of military science, and that was a good talking point there. And who knows, maybe they did call and talk about me. The next thing that I think is really important to get a 1-for-1 is requisitions in phase one. So for me, my phase one didn't even really happen because the AIM marketplace didn't work. And I know that happened the movement cycle before. So what I recommend doing for you, if that happens, is go on the assignments page. You can still see those assignments that are coming up. And just look at those assignments, the ones that you really want, start emailing them. Be early and forthcoming and email your packet. And some require a packet and some don't. But if you're, proactive and give them all that information, the OERs, the awards, or, whatever it is, stuff that you want to just show, who you are and what your skills are, that's great. The unit will see that, and that is definitely a plus. I had units reaching out to me after that, which was great. And I had 4 or 5 interviews within phase one, and no one, I know for a fact, a lot of my peers didn't even have interviews then, but that's just because I was really stressed. I wanted to, get the job that I wanted. So the next tip I want to show you guys is requisitions. Basically, in phase one, phase two, you're listing each other, but what they don't tell you is, the top 10% for me could see that I put them in their top 10%. And you can also see that if the unit put you in their top 10%, you can see that as well. So the idea is to put as many jobs and units as possible. So for example, I had 200. So that means I had 20 units see that I was signaling to them in phase two, which is good for getting interviews. And then, if you can even put jobs that you technically aren't even qualified for. So like, there's a lot of jobs that were broadening assignments that I didn't qualify for because I'm not KD complete. So that'll help boost your numbers, but I would put any place that you wouldn't mind going. Like if worst came to worst, it was just like, all right, well, I guess I'm going there. But don't put any place you absolutely do not want to go to because you might get it because, that's a trend. If everyone doesn't like it, someone has to go there. So just don't put it on your list. With that, a lot of people couldn't do their, list their preferences in the first phase or list the units because the AIM marketplace wasn't working. So what I'd suggest for you, if that happens, is you email the people on the assignments. Those assignments are still there in the portal. So email those people with your packet. And that brings me to my next point, your packet. If you email them your packet, you're being forthcoming and proactive, and the unit's going to see that and think, wow, that's great. This officer is going to be a great candidate. They're proactive, they're open, they're forthcoming, and that opens the door for a conversation for an interview, which is, that's the goal. You want to cast your net, get as many interviews, and then finally pick one and negotiate a 1-for-1. And that goes into my next topic, which is the interview. So with the interview, you want to study, obviously, the questions that are most common, which is who are you, give your little elevator speech. What are you looking for? What's your 5-year plan? What is a time where, you had a big friction point or a stressor, and how did you deal with it? What is your weakness and why is it a weakness? And all those things you have to prepare for and obviously spin in a positive light or show who you are and why you are a good candidate, because you're playing the interview game, you're applying for a job. And then with that, also be honest, because they're going to ask you this question definitely, most likely, if not the first interview, the second interview. Where do you see us on your list? And that's a fair question because they don't want to give out a 1-for-1 if you're not going to 1-for-1 them. So you have to be honest with them and be like, hey, at this time, I still have a few other interviews. Right now I have you as 2, but after my next interview, this say Tuesday or something like that, I could tell you, what I'm feeling. You're feeling me out and they're feeling you out. It's just like you're seeing if you're a good match. So that's just be honest. And also like these lieutenant colonels or majors that you're interviewing with will probably, talk. They know each other. They'll be like, oh, I have this great candidate, or they have this pool of people that they're talking about. Oh, I know this person, or this person said I'm one, and then he said you were one, and then you're just gonna get burned. So don't do that. Just be honest, because a lot of these people already know each other. It's a small world. It's a small army world. And I would just regularly touch point with them. Hey, you're my 1-for-1. I just want to know where we were, and it'll all turn out all right. And also within the interview process, you're also feeling out the unit, so they're gonna ask you, hey, what questions do you have for me? So make sure you have questions that you actually want to know, or ask them to determine what type of unit this is. What is the culture like? How do you like it there? Because this is as much as for you as it is for them. So make sure you ask those questions. And with that, with the interviews being done, which hopefully would be phase one, phase two, brings you to phase three. And hopefully going to phase three, you know who you're one for oneing, and they're going to one for one you, and you have that confidence in that. And then you should just be coasting for the rest of the time. If not, you're making those final touch points with other units. I had units that I reached out to in the beginning, and they reached out to me at the very end asking if I had a one for one yet. But it's tough. But I already did my interview and I committed, and I'm going to stay committed to my statement of, hey, you're my one, because I can't go back on that. And also that that unit obviously is very disorganized if they're coming on the like second to last day saying, hey, do you have a one for one? Because why weren't you proactive to begin with? Because I probably would have went with you if you were, So just watch out for stuff like that, and dealing units. Most likely you want to deal with a major or lieutenant colonel. Personally, a lot of my interviews were with lieutenant colonels, and I thought that meant more for me because it meant they were invested in their people and their organization. The majors, when you ask them questions, or even if you had a captain you're interviewing with, they'll be like, oh, I don't know, I'll have to talk to this person. It's just easier, and it means a lot more for me personally, for those units that are watching me now, that the lieutenant colonel or my raider or senior raider is talking to me about what's going on or what they have planned. Because when you get that blow off of, oh, I don't know, or I'll have to ask this person, or you'll have to wait till you come here, it doesn't give you a good feeling. So look out for that as well. For units, don't, I would try to do that as best practice. And then for officers in the AIM marketplace, just look out for those little red flags of if that unit is the unit for you. And with that, that concludes this section. Well, thanks for listening, guys. I appreciate that. If this video provided you value, please feel free to use this as an LPD for your lieutenants or captains or whoever you might think this will help. Thanks. Have a good one.